Welcome back to Sports News Africa. Well, a global audience would have seen the unsavoury scenes from yesterday's semi-final. To talk about that and to look ahead to the Sunday's final, we're joined by football correspondent Peter Heyde. Peter, the fairy tale became a nightmare for Equatorial Guinea. What did you see?
Yes, unfortunately it did. I think it started really when the players of the host, they started questioning decisions. They rolled around. It was very uncharacteristic for them because they hadn't been doing that in the first games. And I think they kind of edged the crowd on a bit. And then the crowd started throwing bottles, mainly water bottles, onto the field. And that just escalated and caused the controversy and the mayhem.
What do you think made the Equatorial Guinea fans so angry?
I think it was unfortunately, I would give much of the blame to the players because they were just not accepting referees' decisions and they were instigating the crowd, I would say, and that just caused the crowd to become a little bit violent. And I think also the kind of the country is a little bit. Let me put it this way: the army has a very important, and soldiers have a very important role to play here, and I think that's not always a very popular thing. And so I think the crowd also just vented their anger and frustration at this football field, at the football game, and I think that not everything about it had to do about the match.
How much police presence was there at the match?
In the stadium itself, there wasn't that much. Around the stadium, there was an awful lot. And as the problems escalated, more and more police and soldiers came into the field, into the stadium, and to try to bring the crowd under control.
How much damage will Thursday's scenes do to the reputation of African football?
Unfortunately, I think a lot. In that, especially European media outlets, European newspapers that aren't really interested in the African Cup of Nations have suddenly jumped on the bandwagon and are running articles showing photographs, footage, etc. And I think it's a very worrying and concerning issue, and something which CAF needs to look at quite seriously.
CAF are usually quite swift on matters of crowd disturbance. Do you think the hosts might be sanctioned?
Well, yes. I mean, CAF has just announced an hour or less ago that they would issue the sanctions, and that the hosts have been fined $100,000, and also that they will have to play the third place game behind closed doors, though that has been suspended for one game. So they're allowed to play the third place playoff against the DR Congo at home here in Malabo, and spectators will be allowed. But if there's a reoccurrence of the incidents, then they will have to play their next game behind closed doors.
Ghana, in the end, had just too much for Equatorial Guinea. How do you think they will fare in Sunday's final against Ivory Coast?
I would think that it's a very open final. I think both sides really are kind of downplaying their role a bit, and both are trying to say, oh, the other team is the favorite. And I think that it will make it a very open very open game. I think both sides have got excellent footballers. Both sides can play very, very attacking football. Winning your semi-final and scoring 3 goals in the process is not something that happens every day. And I would predict that we're not going to have a goalless 120 0-0 like we had in 1992, and then 24 penalties to decide. I think we're going to have a few goals in the game, and it should be hopefully it'll get the attention back to where it should be on the football field rather than on the crowd disturbance. Peter,
what are your predictions?
If I was good in predicting, I'd probably be rich because I'd be a betting man. I'll be. I won't say controversial, but I'll probably go against the grain and I'll say Ghana's going to win 2-1.
Peter, thank you very much for speaking to Sports News Africa.
Always a pleasure.